association that we have. It's just an ongoing project. We all know that to keep it going. If we stop, it's dead in its history. We also know that, so we just struggle to keep it going every year. And Lupe was really instrumental in helping everyone to keep this thing going. And he developed a little closer relationship with some people, and he did it.
You're a lucky man, because you look just like your dad. I kind of represent the bakery a bit. I also have Felicia and Robin here today. And he was such a part every day at the bakery that it kind of feels wrong to have somebody sitting in his seat. And I would like to, reiterate missing him. I didn't realize it would hit me so hard. It has. And we always used to tease him that Mexico was going to be the death of him. Because every time he'd go down there, he'd either get run over by his own truck or came back with a hernia that he required surgery for. And I wish that he would have been around the extra 20 years, because I would have liked to have been a part of that. I always used to tease Lupe because any conversation that we had together within 10 minutes turned into a religious conversation. So I had a lot of 9-minute conversations with him.
Nephew who came up here when I was young. 69, yeah. So I was kind of raised here for like 8 years and left, and always came back, always found this to be my home. Nice area, come and charge up the batteries when things were going wrong, come back here and just feel good. Either that or go to Mexico. That's where he was my godfather. So one thing I remember when I was a kid, I'll tell you some real old stories probably never everybody heard. He'd go down there, and him and Donna, and here we had these little Mexican kids, of course, they didn't speak nothing. Hadn't seen nothing in the world, and they'd be speaking English, and we just sit there, all of us just at Oz, the way, Donna was white and pretty and always dressed up nice, and he was, you can see how he was younger there, so he dressed up always with a tie. And when my dad died when I was 6, and he told my dad told my uncle, he said, my grandpa, he said, if you ever get a chance, take him to the States, seems like he's kind of smart. Maybe he'll do something with his life. And that's always stuck to me throughout my whole life, what he said. And yet, coming up here with him, it was like, I kind of had two families. I was an older boy, the youngest brother, and I was the oldest brother to them too, always, and I still feel that we had a really tight bond. He was really a special man because I call him a pioneer out of where we came from, because he had third grade education, his brain worked so hard, fast, and sometimes, those are people that should get educated, but he had the education of life. Basically he didn't know how to do everything. Like I said, you ask him a question about your stomach and he gives you the whole rundown of how it works and that was always, I always remember that. And then, like I said, you ask for, like somebody said about having a cup of tea, make it 2 or 3 hours, he would just go on about it. But all this stuff made sense, At the end, what happened was, I think he was lonely, not lonely, but a loner, where he was by himself. Even in Mexico, when you go down there, there were some problems down there. He was kind of on his own, which was sad to see, because that wasn't the man he was at the end. He wasn't the man he was here, I don't think, because I remember him always, I don't know anybody here really, but I know a lot of people knew of him, same down there. And at the end, what happened was that he kind of like was always working, on this tabletop, And at the end, he was working on a house. He used to put on my mom and dad, fixing it up. And that's all he do. You know, but he basically was a pioneer in a way because we didn't have electricity in the farm. He was the one that got the electricity. He did the water. He did made the wells. We have water, and, you know, it used to be you get it on donkeys and put it in barrels or carry it by hand. So he did a lot. He did a lot, and he was one of the first ones that, when he first came here, he brought all my uncles up here and helped, you know, with their immigration, legalizing, which was a lot then. You know, he came as a bracero, and he, you know, he did very well for himself as far as one of the biggest. I blame nobody, but one of his biggest demise was a divorce, and that kind of like just disinflated him, you know, work-wise, morally. I spent a lot of time with him after the divorce, and it was real hard. I really couldn't take it, so I went back home, and I came back to visit, but I never came back to stay here because I was old. I had to work and stuff. But no, he was really. Everybody knew him. He was, I mean, a hard worker. Like some of the stories he said, as far as nobody was better at doing things, anything. And I learned a lot. I do this. I mean, I don't do the same thing. I'm a contractor, but from him, I think seeing him, you know, taught me a worth ethic. I remember I was 12 years old, up in the house in town. The wheelbarrow was the same size, full of rocks all the way to the top, and we'd be working, you know. And one of the neighbors says, "You gotta watch that kid. You're gonna hurt him." He says, "No, he's not gonna hurt him. He's gonna help him." And
I was just fighting with that animal.
I've had in the past, and I never knew when he was going to show up and be doing something, and I was still in my bathrobe at 9 o'clock in the morning, which was probably not cool. But I feel like I was really lucky to get to know Lupe, and I helped him rake a lot of leaves, and I feel like one of the biggest compliments I ever got was the last time we were raking leaves shortly before he left. He told me, "You do that pretty good," because I did it his way. So, I just want to say that I feel really lucky to have known him even for such a short time, and it's because of him that I can feel like I'm even more a part of this community with all of you. So, thanks,
So I'll say a couple funny things about it. One is
I'm Robert Denise's daughter, so I grew up here with Lupe as my neighbor. And just as a kid, he was the fastest talking guy that I could ever understand. I actually thought he was speaking in Spanish. But, you know, he was, again, everyone's already said it, the work ethic, just having a role model like that growing up for kids was amazing. You know, I thought my parents were hard workers, but he was twice
do, and just really brightened my day. Could never wait for him to come back from Mexico because I never knew if he was going to come back. I'd always have people come in and ask,